Okay, guys, thank you so much for all being here today. Today we're going to cover K-12 and the Mastery-Based Digital Learner Profile, specifically at an Australian high school. So my name's Nicholas Robert. I'm the founder and CEO of Learning Vault, and with me is Margo Griffith, Head of Business Development at Edalex. You'll notice that one person that's not in the room is Darren Ponman. Darren is the principal of the Hunter School of the Performing Arts, and he's actually joining us for a couple of video sessions that he kindly invested time in Australia to help inform what we'll be talking about today. So what we will be talking about largely is the actual process that we created for Hunter School of Performing Arts as it relates to a learner profile. And we're going to be going through this largely as a case study. So looking first at the original problem that Darren had, then working through what a solution looks like, the outcome of the implementation of that solution, what this means for things moving forward, both at a domestic level within Australia, but then on the global stage as well. And of course, we can answer any questions that you might have. So first of all, let's hear from Darren.
Hi, I'm Darren Ponman. I'm principal of Hunter School of the Performing Arts. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you today from the land of the Awabakal and Warramai people, the traditional custodians of our land, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. So we were looking for a solution that would allow us to leverage the great work that we've been doing in the space of mastery learning and reflect the students' achievements with regard to that via a student dashboard and allocate badges for curriculum, cross-curriculum and co-curriculum. We looked at a number of different systems. None of them allowed us to have a teacher intervening and actually marking rubrics to generate badges and micro-credentials, which was really, really important to us. We also needed the system that we were developing to be scalable. We work in a big department and we recognized that the validity of the badges, et cetera, that we were creating would be far more powerful if it was implemented in a number of sites. The badges needed to reflect student achievement of mastery with regard to our state syllabus, as well as reflect their level of mastery with regard to cross-curriculum, such as communication, collaboration, critical thinking and creativity, and importantly, co-curriculum, such as the performing arts. So we have badges for music performance, for example. One of the other criteria we had was that we would like it all to be displayed in a very user-friendly dashboard, learner profile, which also displayed their attendance and all of the information that parents and students need to meet the reporting guidelines of our department and demonstrate that reflection 24/7. The dashboard needed to be accessible by parents and students, and it's something we wanted them to use and refer to regularly.
Right, so as we heard from Darren, there were a number of challenges in that brief. And to be honest, when he first came to us, or he certainly came to me actually initially, wondering if we could do it, I said, actually, no, we can't, at least not by ourselves. Darren had done a fairly extensive market scan by this stage, I think spanning a couple of years. So he'd been thinking fairly carefully about this for a while. And yeah, he said, literally, I can't find anyone that can do it. And I got to thinking about it and thought, well, we can't do it end to end by ourselves, but I think if we partner together, that this is entirely possible, that we can find a solution. As you can see, there are a ton of challenges. The number one challenge that he articulated was saving teacher time. Like, he just wanted the teachers to be able to mark once. And honestly, I think in Australia, and I am assuming in the US as well, this is a pretty serious issue. I saw an article or report actually last Friday that 50% of teachers have indicated that they were going to quit the profession. That's in Australia. That's devastating. It's devastating to our young people. And as I said, I assume it's similar here in the US. And I'm seeing some nods from people that indicate that this is true. So saving teacher time was paramount. The second one was actually having that personal teacher feedback, being able to be incorporated into the the report and have that visibility for the learners and for parents. Certainly in Darren's market scan, there are a number of, providers that could facilitate earning badges by quiz completion or even by mastery pathways. But it really didn't support that teacher intervention, that personal teacher feedback, which is really crucial and underpins the mastery model at HSPA. The next thing is scalable. Like, it's all very well to do all this work, but we've got to be able to scale it, not just across a fairly large institution like HSPA, but most certainly we'd be looking to roll this out to other schools and potentially entire statewide deployment. So it had to be scalable. The dashboard for 24/7 visibility, I touched on that just briefly, but for learners, parents and teachers, having that 24/7 access to see exactly how the learner is progressing is kind of revolutionary. And it's not like the data has not always been there. We're really just enabling that through the provision of facilitating that personal feedback, to be honest. Recognition and progression to mastery. Now, this is, again, another really important point and one that Darren was very specific that had to be captured. It's a mastery model, which means they're moving from emerging to advanced. How do we recognize that digitally without actually issuing 1 million badges, right? Which were and would be very confusing and also devaluing to the digital credential in and of itself. So we had to think long and hard about that solution. How do we recognize that progression to mastery and yet not crowd the market with the digital badges? We also had to be considerate that we are operating within both a state and national regulatory framework. So we had to align to the curriculum. And so the curriculum badges, the cross-curriculum, and the co-curricular all had to be aligned appropriately. So that was, a very significant consideration. The digital badges, of course, needed to be portable outside of the school environment. They needed to be useful to the students for both employment opportunities and for further studies. And lastly, certainly within Australia, that data had to be sovereign. It had to be held within Australia for data security and privacy reasons. So, we had a few challenges when we were putting our heads together to come up with a solution, but all good fun. Nicholas?
Yeah, indeed, that was good fun. Sovereignty of data within Australia is very important, and we find that most jurisdictions that we work with actually do want their own sovereign data set on inland, in country, which is important. Margo, what I think I might do is just get you at a really high level to explain the mastery model that HSPA use.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have on each of the tables a QR code, which will take you to a web page, which will have all of these resources. So don't feel like you've got to jot this down. But we wanted to really highlight the incredible work that HSPA has done in actually developing this model and rolling it out to all of the teachers. And then, how this is distilled down through every piece of curricula that they have developed. Recognizing the learning within the curricula, those curriculum badges have to be aligned to the NESA syllabus outcomes. They're subject specific, they're awarded by class teachers, and they're based upon the level of mastery that students demonstrate during class activities and tasks. We also have cross-curricular badges, which is again assessed in all subjects. And these cross-curriculum badges are aligned with future-focused skills. You might call those the enduring skills, employability skills, etc. Now, these badges are also awarded by class teachers, but they reflect the skills demonstrated by students across all classes and activities, and that's an average weighting.
Sorry, Margo, I might just pick you up on that. Just for the people that are in the room that might be sort of having some form of badging structure or strategy at the moment, I think what's really important to highlight here is one of the Edalex products that's built in there that we're utilising as part of this learner profile is called Credentialate. And one of the complex things within Credentialate is the ability to actually look at averages and award credentials over an aggregated basis. So we're actually issuing cross-curriculum based credentials that are aligned to those averages that meet the student where they are at the moment that they are. And I think that's something really important to highlight. So sorry, Margo.
No, thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate it. So in addition to your curriculum, your co-curriculum, your cross-curriculum, is your co-curriculum badges. Now these, students apply for these badges, right? They're highly prestigious badges, and they're via submission of evidence to a portfolio. And those applications are assessed only by expert staff. You can imagine, Hunter School of Performing Arts is a performing arts high school. So, these co-curricular badges are extremely prestigious. So recognising across all of these different layers added its own challenges as well. As indicated before, the mastery model, goes from emerging through to advanced. They have articulated what that means at each level. And I really love the way that HSPA have put it. You can see down the bottom there, like I can identify, I can recall, I can find, and then what that actually levels up to at the different levels. I am developing knowledge, I have sound knowledge, I have a thorough knowledge, and I have extensive knowledge. And from that persona perspective, I think it's really important that they've articulated that. So I won't belabor the mastery model either. You can obviously click on the QR code and go to the resources page that we've provided, but there has been an incredible body of work that's gone into this prior to us even coming to the party to find a solution to enable it. Again, just an indication that there are processes that have been outlined from a student perspective, but also from a parent perspective. The way that parents interact and actually understand what these levels mean and how to encourage and work with their child to level up is an incredibly important process. So again, more information can be gleaned from the HSPA website.
Thank you for that, Margo. So obviously we've heard from Darren, we've heard from Margo in relation to what the learner profile should be. Now we actually needed to start looking at this from a solution architectural perspective. So we had a few things that we really needed to work through. And the first one was knowing that we wanted to scale this both domestically within Australia on a state-by-state basis, but also globally. And obviously we've got some good friends here from some school districts in the US that we're planning on doing some work with. So thank you for that. But we are looking at learning management systems, student management systems, SIS systems. And one of the things that we really identified was, whilst there are some large players in the market, there are also some niche providers as well. And what we wanted to be able to do is make sure that the solution that we architected could actually be agnostic and work within all of those systems. But we also needed it to be interoperable in case a student was moving from one institute to another institute that maybe wasn't interacting with the same form of learner profile, but they could take everything with them. One of the big things that we learned through discovery with HSPA, they are a Canvas by instructor user, is that they really focused on the mastery gradebook element. So we did a little bit of due diligence with some other providers out there, some other learning management systems, to understand if they had a similar sort of product within their product suite that related to Mastery Gradebook, which they did. So the Mastery Gradebook largely becomes the center of truth that Credentialate then integrates with, that then Learning Vault issues credentials from and then returns back to that same environment. There are a lot of pedagogical considerations that we actually went through. So when we start thinking about the efficacy of actually issuing credentials or badges, we really wanted to make sure that they were not going to be receiving too many. Margo touched on a previous slide about receiving 1 million badges. That would be completely dilutive and not reflecting what we actually want in that construct of lifelong learning. So we wanted to make sure that all credentials that were issued were actually meaningful, of value to the student, of value to higher education or alternate education providers, and also future employers. One of the other things that we strongly looked at was the various technical considerations working within the platform and whether that should go outside to other platforms. And we actually engaged a few different thought leaders in this respect in terms of how we should look at architecting a solution. And one of the things that we landed on as a group and with HSPA was the fact that it should all actually live within the exact ecosystem that students are used to interacting with, teachers are used to interacting with, and parents are used to interacting with. So it's very important for us that when we were creating a solution, it can actually live in the same space that the student, teacher, and parents are already interacting with, and that largely is the learning management system. So Edalex and Learning Vault, after we did all of this discovery, ultimately went back to HSPA with a series of questions and some thoughts around all of this. And Darren kindly has put his thoughts down in a video on the next slide.
During one of the brainstorming sessions with the EdTech team in the development phase, we realized that students were going to be inundated with possibly hundreds of badges every time they leveled up. It would lead to another badge. So if we look at 12 outcomes per course, 5 levels per outcome, 10 courses possibly, you can see that pretty quickly gets really big and consequently greatly reduces the power and validity of the badges and the meaning for the students. That presented a real issue. And so we did bounce that around for a while looking for solutions. And Nelson in the development team come up with the idea of provisionally awarding badges, which absolutely solves the problem for us. What it does is the students see a reflection of where they are sitting at that point in time as a badge, but it's a provisional badge. So what that meant was that each time that they leveled up, so for example, when they went from developing through to competent, the developing badge would disappear and they would be left with just the competent badge. That means that students only ever see the current badge and are only ever awarded the current badge that they have earned, and it saves confusion of wading through a ton of irrelevant badges. We bake them at the end of each stage. A stage lasts for 2 years for us. So at the end of each stage, we bake those badges and that is the badge that they're actually awarded. It allows us to maintain the 24/7 reporting that we're really, really keen on, but at the same time, still allows for students not to be inundated with badges that they don't really need.
So one of the things that we'll sort of be highlighting is the solution actually includes all of the desires and that light bulb moment information from Darren. So I am going to be going through a quick walkthrough of the platform in a moment, and it's just a video and I'll narrate that video as we go through it. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to call out here quickly before we do that. And the first thing is the dashboard displays attendance as a percentage. And the reason why we did this is to ensure that the minimum attendance requirements for individual students are met, but also from a reporting viewpoint. So Darren really wanted us to be able to focus on freeing teachers up to do what they do best, which is teach and educate, and spend as minimal time as required on actually doing paperwork and compliance. So in Australia, we have minimum reporting requirements. That is, students have to receive a report every semester. And so one of the metrics that we were really looking at is how can we put all of the minimum standards that are required at a governmental level within this architecture display so that every 6 months, every semester, when all of this information is bound into a verifiable credential, that all of that information is there. So ultimately it replaces the report or can supplement the report. The learner profile shows progress broken down per subject and then per stage within each subject. So I just wanted to spend a moment or two on that because when we start going into it, it does actually look a little bit significant. A stage within the Australian context, stage 4, for instance, is year 7 and year 8. Stage 5, year 9 and 10, stage 6, year 11 and 12. But within that, if we take English as a microcosm, there are multiple stages within English. And then within each stage, there is that mastery model that Margo went through before. So one of the things that we wanted to do in order to actually reduce the amount of credentials was issued is Edalex and Learning Vault, both obviously One EdTech members, came up with this concept of provisional credentialing or provisional badges. And we're actually deploying that provisionality to showcase a student's work while they're in semester to show that level of mastery or progress towards mastery throughout that period. Part of that provisionality relates to something that's critically important that's called an evidence record. And this is updated on a regular basis that shows that level of mastery. And then the visual graphic, so the actual badge icon, will actually change color as it moves through that different level of mastery. And then at the end of a sections at the end of a semester, that will actually be baked as a complying credential. So part of that wondrousness is what we would refer to as the assertion pages and the evidence records, as they actually show that rubric, so what was achieved during that semester. And then another component that was critical for Darren and the Hunter School was a spider graph that can actually allow a comparative view against a cohort to see how a student is actually performing in real time against their peers at that same moment in time, just as a visual aid. Okay, so to walk through the platform super quickly, and I guess to narrate a little bit of that. So obviously this is in Canvas. As I said, we use the learning management system. We are agnostic. And then we click through to the mastery of learning. And in here, what we're actually going to see is that spider graph on the side. Attendance is being calculated from the SIS, but brought back into the LMS. And then we have the stages as well as cross-curriculum section. So in the curriculum area, if we click on English, so all of my subjects are there, it will actually have all of the different stages that are broken down. So the stages here, 1 through 12, and then I can see that I've been issued a particular credential as well. So if I flip these over, we'll be able to view the evidence. The evidence actually takes me straight out to the provisional artifact. So I can see here this is updated overnight and shows the progress and the provisionality of where I am at that moment in time. If I actually want to understand how I can level up, so maybe I'm a beginner on my journey through to advanced, I can actually click through onto this page as a parent or a student, and I can actually understand exactly what I need to do in this subject to move from emerging through to advanced. So it's a really critical piece of information here. It's important to note provisional will always be on top for this particular student, and issued or baked will always be towards the bottom. If I want to look at what a baked credential looks like, I can simply click on the actual credential, and it will open the fully baked credential that includes all of the baked metadata as well as the Credentialate evidence record, and I can verify that. So it is a verifiable instrument as well. Okay, just returning back to the main page now. If I wanted to look at cross-curriculum credentials, what I can do is see all of those, and again, my level of mastery to all of those. So if I wanted to understand what citizenship looked like, I can click on that, and I believe that I click on that in a moment. There we go. So again, a baked verifiable credential at the end of that level of mastery for that particular area, that cross-curriculum credential, and again, a verifiable instrument. So one of the things why that Jane Citizen is really important that we've put up the top there is purely to signify the person that I'm looking at. So one of the things that was really important for HSPA and also a lot of the schools that we've spoken to, and Margo, you obviously know, we've spent some time with Harvard discussing their paper as it relates to a learner profile and conceptually that might look like, and we've shown them practically what we've created, and some great feedback there. But the parents or the guardians actually should really be involved as much as possible through that learning cycle. So obviously we've stopped playing the video. We're now on a screen here. The reason we have Jane Citizen at the top is because if I am a parent or guardian, I can actually toggle within Canvas to have access to the different children that I have or people that I interact with and am responsible for. Again, the curriculum stage credentials, they're all here. This will change depending on how many subjects I'm doing and what elective subjects that I'm doing as well. So I just wanted to sort of call that out straight out of the gate. And you'll see here that provisionality that I was talking about. One of the things that we wanted to do and make really clear was not produce another system for people to have to interact with. We wanted to create a really user-friendly experience in an environment that students, teachers, and parents are already used to interacting with. And part of that process was, if I'm in a process trying to work my way through mastery, I want to be looking at the things that I have control over in the first instance, so provisional, and then go through to the credentials that I've already been issued in terms of the past. So I can see here that a lot of things are not yet assessed, and that's perfectly fine because they are stages that I'm not yet working across. You see here, I just wanted to highlight again, which I did in the video, that strength of provisionality and the criticalness to that in terms of the learner profile and sort of where we've been up to today, specifically for the Hunter School of Performing Arts, but also on a global level as we look towards affecting real change across that learning education ecosystem. And of course, a verifiable credential. So here is another video from Darren, just summing up the outcomes of HSPA and beyond.
So the process of developing the badges from a teaching and learning point of view, it's facilitated amazing conversations with our staff in terms of what we value as a school, our priority areas when we looked at, okay, what are we awarding badges for from a curriculum point of view and a cross-curriculum and a co-curriculum point of view. Let's take that a step further and look at what are the stages of that students need to move through to get to a mastery point in each of those skills. So it's been an amazing journey on that front from the point of view of it's really drawn into focus a consistent approach to not just assessment, but also to how we teach and what we do and what we value at our school. We now have a revolutionary, fantastic solution. The speed of innovation was fantastic. We got the solution into production very, very quickly. The impact that this will have on learners, parents and teachers, saving time on reporting is going to be huge. So it's hard to overstate the power of the idea of a student being able to have a look at their learner dashboard and at a glance get a real feel for where they're sitting in terms of at a granular level for every subject, as well as how they're traveling in terms of those really important cross-curriculum skills that we know industry and tertiary are crying out for with regard to collaboration, etc. Those things are being assessed across all subjects and being reflected via the dashboard. So parents, students, employers, tertiary, etc., can see exactly where they sit, and it's a really valid assessment of that. And we've also got cohort comparisons coming, which will make a big difference in terms of showing parents where their students are sitting in terms of the rest of the cohort. In terms of students looking at their dashboards, we have a reflection week built into the curriculum now, week 9 of every semester. The students are going to be looking through their dashboard and analysing that and asking themselves how they can level up in different badges and writing little statements to themselves and to their teacher saying this is what they plan to do, and really encouraging the gamification aspect that the learner profile dashboard opens up for us. So next steps for HSPA, the Department of Education, the state government have been keeping a very close eye on the project as we've been moving through it. They're excited about the product that we're developing. We know that it is scalable, and I expect a lot of schools across the state to start implementing it in the future. So the project has been hugely successful for us. It absolutely has been customised to our practice and not us customising our practice to the technology, which was a really important criteria right from the get-go. There's a whole range of benefits for students, for parents, for industry, for tertiary, etc. But one of the most important things is it really sets quite clearly the direction and the values of our school and reflects where students are in regard to that. And it sets some consistency for our teachers with regards to the skills that we want our students to develop and master during their education with us are delivered, because as we know, what we assess, we teach.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for all being in the room with us today and for listening. I hope that it has maybe sparked some interest or some innovation in your particular area. We are just starting on this journey, so I would love to report back to you in 6 months or maybe in New Orleans next year how this has gone. I think we also need to put it into context that the state of New South Wales in Australia, the Department of Education, has in fact issued a tender for an education wallet, and that education wallet may eventually feed into the largest state licensure wallet where we keep our licenses and our Medicare cards, etc. So the state of New South Wales and the New South Wales government is really looking at, how we can improve the mobility and equity for not just for learners, but for really all citizens. It's a long-term project, but pretty excited about where this may end up. So, yeah, again, thank you for listening. I'm happy to take any questions.